Junkies, welcome to this review of Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme. Any Wes Anderson fans out there? I think everyone who's a film lover has a favourite Wes Anderson film, I think. Whether it be something as sort of silly as The Fantastic Mr. Fox, or whether it be some of his sort of earlier movies, whether it might be the sort of Royal Tenenbaums, or The Life Aquatic, or the Darjeeling Limited. You know, there's something there for everyone. But I would argue that in recent years, there's a compelling argument to suggest that most of his films, or many of his films, have become very similar and derivative, i.e., they're always, if you're an absolute Wes Anderson fan and aficionado, there's always something there to enjoy. But sometimes they can be sort of ornate and production design complicated to the expense of, say, character and emotion and warmth. So sometimes I sometimes can have the experience with some Wes Anderson films are coming out going, oh yeah, that was very playful, very challenging, very clever, very intricate, very neat and nifty. But it didn't touch me. And I think that's one of the issues I have with a lot of Wes Anderson films, is that they haven't really touched my heart. I mean, ironically, I think films like The Fantastic Mr. Fox have perhaps touched my heart more. I mean, for me, a good Wes Anderson film often is the film that has an actor or a set of actors that reach almost beyond the stylistic intricacies or the kind of filigree detail of his production design, his set design. You know, he's renowned for his, not always, but often sort of almost 4:3, slightly truncated, more TV-like or Instagram-like aspect ratio. I think that's why he's so popular on social media. There's lots of kind of trends and hashtags, and they're replicating the Wes Anderson look and all that kind of stuff. So we all have a sense of him because he fits within the neat little Instagram box. You know, and that's not to say that nearly every single one of his films isn't an indulgence for the eyes. It really is. But they do run the risk a little bit of feeling a lot like each other. So the reason I'm going to great lengths to say all of that, his last feature film, The Asteroid City, I think I preferred it to some people. A lot of people really didn't like it. I quite liked it, but I think what I liked most about it was the fact that it was kind of set in the desert. It was kind of speaking towards the kind of space race, the alien thing, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it was kind of, that was kind of appealing to me. The other thing about Wes Anderson films is he tends to kind of pull upon a very sort of broad, incredibly hefty cast list of regulars, if you like. You know, Scarlett Johansson's and Adrian Brody's, Bryan Cranston's and Jeffrey Wright's. You know, a lot of the same actors come trotting through. But those films that have really stood out for me, as I say, are films like The Grand Budapest Hotel. I think that really stood out for me because Ralph Fiennes stood out to me, and I felt I could really connect to him. So again, I went into this film thinking The Phoenician Scheme. Oh, already we've got a title that we have to unpack and work out, and it's not straightforward. And it's not that one doesn't like to have to work stuff out, but sometimes I think the word pretentious can be overused to dismiss anything that's vaguely complicated, challenging, or is an alternative way of making something. I'm all for changing the filmic language, changing the way films are made, changing the way performances are done. But sometimes I think things can be done pretentiously, but I think sometimes the word pretentious is used just to kind of shut up anyone being able to do anything differently. However, I would argue that there is a strong argument sometimes with Wes Anderson to say that he has become a little bit self-indulgent, and he has become sometimes a little bit pretentious. I think the film, which one was it? The French Dispatch. I found it incredibly self-indulgent, unengaging, complicated. Sort of like it, almost like Wes Anderson is in on a joke. He finds it funny and he expects everyone else to find it funny. So I think it's key to say that Wes Anderson is in the business of making what he thinks are comedies. They all have a comic turn. I mean, I can't think of a sort of tragic film. I mean, that doesn't mean to say that lots of people don't die and things don't happen. So I went into The Phoenician Scheme last night thinking, oh God, I need to see this. I have to go and see this. It's the big release of the last week. I've been ill. Come on, it's Wes Anderson. Sit down, strap yourself in and get to it. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that within the first 5 minutes, I was roaring with laughter, and I was having an experience I was in no way expecting to have. I think this film is massively helped by the incredibly clever performance of Benicio del Toro. He's a fascinating Hollywood star. I've had the great luck of getting drunk with him one morning for the promotion of The Usual Suspects. I wasn't supposed to be interviewing him, and I'd mistakenly been introduced to him in a hotel bar. And we had a few drinks, got drunk, talked about the movie. It was great, and I liked him a lot. But there's something about him. He's otherworldly. I don't remember him being quite so big. I mean, I remember him being tall, but I don't remember him being wide. It's like he's made of granite. Anyway, so he plays essentially this arms dealer, sort of wealthy kind of individual. He's got lots of money, he's an arms dealer, he's kind of dodgy. But this opening scene, the music wasn't very Wes Anderson, so I like that. The drama was brilliant. A guy explodes suddenly at the back of the plane. We have a dramatic airplane crash situation, because what we discover is this is an assassination attempt. And what I found quite cleverly was within the first 7 minutes, I was hooked in, literally like in the cockpit, strapped in, attached to my chair, and I was game on, and I was in. It was a complete eye-opener, and I thought, okay, well, that's kind of a lucky start. Where's this going to go? And I think the Phoenician Scheme, yeah, okay, it's a curate's egg of a title. What does it mean? What's it going on about? Essentially, as I say, he's an arms dealer. He's an industrialist. He's got lots of money. Lots of people are trying to kill him. He has sort of, in that sort of industrialist fashion, he has sort of ambitions to build an empire, build a business in Phoenicia. I mean, to be honest with you, like with I came in last night and someone in the house said, well, what's it about? It's a hard grasp to give you, but I mean, essentially, he's a kind of not particularly nice, brutalist, ruthless businessman who sells bombs, and as everyone he meets, he's offering a hand grenade to. I thought that was quite funny. So he's ruthless. He has a disengaged, estranged relationship with his daughter, played by Mia Threapleton, who is a nun. But she comes to him and basically, because he knows he's going to be assassinated, even though he's got loads of these boys, irritating sons, he wants to sort of, in a sense, give his estate to his daughter. And he basically sets off on a journey to secure a sort of deal, or wants to kind of make his kind of industrial assets and his estate secure by brokering deals with lots of people. So it's a film about a guy trying to cut business deals, and he's, by all accounts, the best deal cutter there is. And so he goes off on a journey around these various places to kind of leverage money, leverage finance. He's trying to close the gap on a financial deal. So there's lots of charts and there's lots of pie charts and all this kind of stuff. But really, the nuanced detail of what he's pulling off isn't what matters. I think that's always the thing. It's like, yes, that's what it's about. And of course, people are going to say, what's it about? He's known as Mr. 5%. You know, he's the guy to be able to kind of get himself into any deal and broker the best deal. He's a deal maker and a deal breaker. I couldn't help but feel that baked into his character, perhaps, sorry, I've just been doing a blood test. Baked into his character was a little bit of him, sort of a bit of a riff on Trump. I mean, I don't think Wes Anderson ever kind of comments on real world politics, because his films don't operate in any kind of real world. But I felt you could potentially read this as a sort of, the Benicio del Toro character is a bit of a Trumpian kind of character. And so you had this wonderful start, and basically all the way through, someone's always trying to kill him. Someone's trying to kill him. He suddenly has Mia Threapleton as his kind of daughter, is in tow alongside him. He's employed essentially employed a tutor played by Michael Cera, who's got the weirdest, squirmiest, squeakiest voice. But what I have to say, what I found with this film, and I've not found this with other Wes Anderson's films, I've kind of found myself kind of begrudgingly laughing at some things. There have been moments where I've laughed out loud. I think Benicio del Toro in a wheelchair in The French Dispatch had me pissing myself with laughter. I found myself laughing in this film a lot, and I was surprised, and this was despite myself, and this was despite me having sat down thinking, I've got to just get through this. It's the latest Wes Anderson, it's got to be done. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised. But here's some of the things. So Benicio del Toro is sensational throughout it. He gives it gravitas. He delivers comic lines with such a growl, and his eyes are doing so much behind those hooded eyelids. He's kind of present, and he's doing what he's doing, but you never feel he's quite committed or even on board with whatever the fucking weird shit is that's going on around him. So he's great. You can't work out if he loves his daughter, Mia Threapleton, who's a nun, or whether he's being opportunistic. And yet let me just say it right here, right now. She's Kate Winslet's daughter, and that's as far as the sort of Nepo thing needs to go. She has earned her place at the table with this performance. She is sensational as this curious, so she's curious, she's a nun, she's therefore wholesome and holy, but across the arc of the film, she slowly starts to be introduced to alcohol, she smokes a pipe, she's kind of quirky, she's funny, she drives a hard deal and a hard bargain with her own dad, which makes sense because he's a deal breaker and a deal maker, so she's a deal breaker and a deal maker. Meanwhile, Michael Cera, who is this tutor that he's brought in actually for his unruly bunch of sons who are hysterical. They're always off shot on a balcony, firing crossbow darts at things. It's just hysterical. I mean, I have to say, the slapstick in this, and the way Benicio del Toro played the comedy, and Mia Threapleton, and Michael Cera's character was just so sort of weird and kind of creepy, but also kind of really sweet at the same time. It was fascinating to watch. And so as they move through these various setups, and really it is a film in 5 chapters as he goes to 5 different groups or investor types, and he's seeking their support, or he's seeking to make as much money from them or get as much of a commitment from them as possible. So the first of these is he goes underground to meet Tom Hanks and Bryan Cranston and Riz Ahmed. So you've got these 3, and then you've got Mia Threapleton, and then you've got Benicio del Toro. And they challenge each other, or I think Benicio del Toro challenges them to a basketball basket-off. I laughed for the entire 3 to 4 minutes of this scene. Bryan Cranston, hysterical, just as he is in The Studio, final couple of episodes of The Studio on Apple TV. Tom Hanks, brilliant. Benicio, hysterical. Riz Ahmed, it was one of the most surreal basketball where they kind of... What happens is the reason that they decide to have a basketball basket off to see if Benicio del Toro can finally secure a better deal out of them. I mean, it's never really quite clear to me what the deal is for. At one point, you've got this group of kind of industrialists trying to sabotage him, and they're sort of almost sat in a cupboard, and they're trying to manipulate the price of rivets and things like that. It's kind of, he's obsessed with that kind of. He's literally obsessed with the nuts and bolts of how things are made and done, which is kind of what makes this interesting. What he's very good at, Wes Anderson, is a sort of the repeat of the familiar shots. So, for example, all the way through this film, because they keep travelling to different places, we return to them back in the airplane. Almost at the beginning, we have this. I won't ruin it, but there's the most dramatic death, unexpected death, right at the front of the film. But then, of course, every time you return to this shot of them all in the airplane flying, and you hear a bump, you think, "Oh my God, is someone going to die again?" It's a Shaggy Dog kind of approach to storytelling and filmmaking that does, when it's successful, it does build cumulatively across the film. And I just think, for me, this film, more than Asteroid City, more than The French Dispatch, really succeeded at just building the jokes. So, for example, the 8th time he offers someone, would you like a free hand grenade? It gets funnier and it gets funnier. He has a moment where he meets up with Jeffrey Wright, and he's been given a blood transfusion because with the previous investor in Marseille, he leapt in front of Richard Ayoade's kind of terrorist who tried to shoot the other investor. These weird story plots, really weird moments where, people are trying to kill him. But what actually gave this film heart, which I was surprised by, was really it's a father-daughter film. It's really his and Mia Threapleton's. It's Benicio del Toro's and Mia Threapleton's father-daughter relationship that this is what this film is about. It's the warmth that develops between them. It's what she learns from him. It's how his coldness and his efficiency and his brutalism, if you like, around doing business deals, and how he may have actually treated her in the past. And there's the big question mark all the way through of who killed my mother. She keeps asking, who killed my mother? This question mark, did he kill her mother? Was he responsible for her mother's death? And yet you feel across the arc of the film, and I think Benicio del Toro did a great job of injecting this into his performance, that yes, there's all the formal stuff going on, but you could see him really warming towards his daughter. At one point, he's kind of like, he's going into a room, and for some reason he says, what if I'm not your actual daughter? And he goes, well, if you're not my actual daughter, can I adopt you? He's become so close to her. He's so loves her, I guess. It's the closest you get to love in a Wes Anderson film. It's quite warm. It made me feel warm and cozy. And it was one of those films where every time you didn't have Mia Threapleton on screen, or you didn't have Benicio, or you didn't have even Michael Cera, you couldn't wait to see them. Every character, there was no character that was boring or dull. I have to say, perhaps with the exception of Scarlett Johansson, I do find, I don't know, I find her range becoming more and more limited, actually. I didn't think much of her in Asteroid City either. Now, we build towards the end, and we're building towards this huge crescendo with the final person or, investor that he's looking to kind of leverage happens to be his brother, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And of course, I think Benedict, I haven't seen it, but Benedict was in a short film that Wes Anderson made prior to this film. I couldn't quite get on board with Benedict's character because his beard and his eyebrows, which I think are meant to be so clearly stuck on, were ridiculous. But again, a hysterically slapstick fight scene between him and Benicio del Toro. You've got to be willing to jettison 60% of what you need from a film. It's like, well, why is he doing that? And why are they doing that? It's like you're not going to get straight answers. Why is there a terrorist group led by Richard Ayoade? There'll be a reason, but you can't strive to make coherent sense of every character, every scene, and everything going on in a Wes Anderson film. You've got to kind of go with it. And some of the scenes really take. I wasn't expecting to have some laugh out loud moments where I just really enjoyed the stupidity and the silliness and the slapstick. And as I said earlier, a lot of the slapstick happens between looks and then whip pans and cuts. And I mean, if you've seen too many Wes Andersons in one go, I think this would just feel like all the rest. But for me, the richness of this film was very much parked within the triumvirate of the three lead actors. They brought more than just a formality to it. They brought both humour, but they also brought warmth. So even with Michael Cera's character, who reveals himself not to be a tutor, but to in fact be a spy. And then he walks off away from camera and literally turns around and then becomes the actual character becomes the personality of his real self rather than the tutor. And then suddenly Mia Threapleton sort of is enamored with him, and suddenly they start to drink liquor and alcohol and all this kind of stuff. And the film builds towards this big place where, eventually Benicio del Toro, this industrialist, decides he wants to fund everything himself. He wants a cheaper life. He wants a. But again, it's not really about the story. It's about I don't know what they're about. They're like, it's like a film of countless little chamber pieces. It's like a film of countless little miniature dolls' houses in which little scenes play out, all of which are actually strung together in some kind of weird structural fashion, but which, for me, what I was getting from each scene was just the internal logic, fun and stupidity and silliness of each scene. The music was good, it looked great, it ticks all the boxes of Wes Anderson. He's using all the same devices of little whip tilts and little whip pans. There was one moment where Benicio del Toro would get slapped in the face twice and the camera would spin around to look at Jeffrey Wright. I was laughing out loud. I mean, I laughed almost all the way through this film. It was weird because there were quite a few other people in the cinema, but they weren't laughing. They were at the beginning, but I kept finding things hysterically funny. And I'd gone in really not expecting to like this at all. I think Benicio del Toro brought so much heft and weight and a sort of, because he played it so seriously and he played it so meaningfully, there was inherent comedy in him, but you also felt across the arc of the film him change from being a brutalist and a misogynist to wanting to be a dad and being a softer man, which was nice. Mia Threapleton, you saw her worldly wiseness come out. She began to drink a bit more. She began to fall in love. She looks beautiful. Her deadpan delivery is hysterical, really is hysterical. I mean, the trailer for this film really tells you. I was disappointed by the trailer. For me, the trailer just said, oh, this is just another Wes Anderson film. Whereas actually, I felt this was very different. I thought this was much closer to something like Grand Budapest Hotel. Yes, all the ornate kind of structural, production designy cleverness and all that kind of stuff. But baked into it some really meaningful, strong, soulful performances, and I think Michael Cera was soulful, Benicio del Toro was soulful, and you even have these moments where with each assassination attempt on his life, we cut to black and white, and he's in heaven. I think there's Bill Murray as God at one point, and even all that kind of word, it was kind of slightly different for Wes Anderson. I have to say, I don't think I'll ever recover from the opening 5 minutes of this film was so un-Wes Anderson in many ways that I think it did a big job in kind of throwing me into the rest of the film with a much more kind of rational open-mindedness. I really enjoyed this, and I really wasn't expecting to. It was entertaining, it was diverting, because the performances were so rich and the relationships were so rich, which is not something you often get in, that's not true, Fantastic Mr. Fox you do, but the relationships were so rich. I was really enjoying watching Mia Threapleton and Benicio del Toro's kind of father-daughter relationship as it evolved. I was enjoying watching Michael Cera's romantic interest in Mia Threapleton. I just liked all of that. And because that was driving me along, then suddenly all of the kind of playfulness and cinematic kind of silliness just became an added bonus, really. It became something else to indulge in. So I really, really enjoyed this. Much more than I was expecting, much more than I did Asteroid City. And so I would give this, surprisingly, I would give this 85 out of 100. If you fancy just a quirky, surreal, bizarre, bit of sort of weird, sort of eccentric storytelling, this is for you. What I would say is don't get hung up. I mean, it sounds odd to say this about any film, because of course a film is about the story, but don't get overly hung up on the detail of the story. Don't be trying to make total sense of things, because so many of the things don't make sense, or where they do make sense in the ludicrously complicated mind of Wes Anderson, as a viewer, you're passing through things so quickly. There are lots of shots of kind of like, shoe boxes and lots of labels, and it's the kind of film that you could watch again and again and again. If you took any freeze frame from any point in this film, you could have 86 million sort of Easter egg or MacGuffin things that you could point at and go, oh, that means this and that means that, and oh, look at that, isn't that funny, that's another thing there. There's so much to look at, there's so much you could take away from a second viewing, but don't get hooked up on looking for it all and it all making sense on the first watch. I would recommend go with Benicio, just go with him, and go with Mia Threapleton when she comes in. And then as Michael Cera comes, just go with the three of their performances. I mean, the basketball scene is a classic case in point. Forget why they're there and why they're doing it with these guys. It's fucking funny. It's just stupid. So yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed this film.